Rich Witten, our next guest on the FIU Athletics podcast. Rich, I know you're busy time of year. We were just talking about it, so thanks for creating some time in the schedule. We appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Glad to be here with you, AJ.
There have been so many wild games for your team this season, even from the jump and those 8-9 run comebacks, exhilarating comeback walk-off wins. There's been the flip side of that equation as well, a couple of crushing losses in the end. But as it stands, in your first year with 15 games still to go in the regular season, you already have the team at its win total from last year. 2 ranked wins last week alone as well. The last 2 years total, there had been 2 ranked wins. So there's a number of nice accolades you can attribute to your team right now. What's your assessment to get things started off here? Your assessment of where the club is right now and what you want to see here down the stretch of the regular season?
Yeah, absolutely. We've certainly accomplished a lot of things that we've set out to early on in this year. But with 15 games left, all of them, being very, very important in conference. I'm not quite in a super reflective place right now because we
Yeah.
still have a lot of work that needs to be done, and we're in the hunt for the conference tournament, and have some very important games down here in the home stretch after finals week this week. But I think as you're rebuilding, the culture of a program, and you're bringing in new staff, you've brought in a lot of new players. Is that number one, everyone on the staff and everyone in the program as a player as well, that they understand the standard and the culture of what that's going to be. And, a culture and a standard, can be a little bit of a buzzword nowadays. You got to have
Right.
great culture. You got to have great culture. And what does that mean? And for me, it means the day-to-day process that we do every single rep with, whether that's a rep on the field, whether it's a rep in the classroom, whether it's a rep in the community, a rep in the weight room. All of these things matter, when you're building the program's culture the way you want it to be, and you're helping the staff and the players understand the standard of which everything needs to be done. There's doing repetitions, and then there's doing repetitions the right way,
Right.
and making sure that every single day that we're putting in the quality of work, along with the quantity of work as well, is something that's been very important for us. So, really early on, it's getting the players to understand how we need to do every single thing that's involved in our program, and I feel like we've accomplished that. And a lot of the games that you were talking to, the competitiveness in the group and the resolve of the group certainly has shined through in a lot of moments this season, especially with a lot of comeback wins early,
Yeah.
late crazy finishes, and even facing some adversity through the middle part of the season where a couple of those games, that were close and very competitive did not go our way. But showing the ability to bounce back from some of those very tough losses is something that our group is in the process of learning how to do and continuing to get better at it every single day. So, really it starts with establishing, standards and cultures within the program and having the players understand that. And having a great staff, is a huge part of that as well.
Well, there's no doubt your team can hit the ball, right? That one of its strengths is the offense. Second right now in Conference USA in average, second in hits, top 5 in RBIs and runs scored. And 3 of your guys are actually top 10 in the league in average as well. Alex Sanchez leads the way there in fourth at 355. Did you envision this level of success offensively before the season began, has it taken you somewhat by surprise, or was that one of the things heading into the year that you knew, swinging the bats, that won't be too much of an issue this year? What was the dynamic in your mind heading into the season in that regard?
Yeah, I think that's actually been a little bit of a pleasant surprise. I knew we had a
Sure.
lot of obviously ability on the position player side of things coming back. But we also had some new incomers that had the ability to make an impact. Some guys in the program that had shown moments of being able to play really good, consistent baseball on the position player side, but continuing to progress them and making sure that we can get the consistency out of them that we needed. If we had done this interview before the season, to be honest with you, I probably would have told you we were a pitching and defense team, which is
Right.
actually, a conversation that we've had with the pitchers this year, because we do have a lot of ability on the mound. And really in the last month, they've started to make some big strides on the mound. But there was a point in the season when our arms, were struggling in some situations. But, one of the things that we talked about with that group is understanding the confidence that they need to have going into every single game that they play, because throughout most of the offseason in the fall, truthfully, our pitchers won more of the one-on-one matchups over the position players.
Right.
And now it turns out our position player group has been one of the better ones in Conference USA, and
Yeah.
that's something that we've talked to the pitchers about. Listen, guys, hey, you were able to compete and really at times dominate this group of hitters for us that we have that have turned out to be one of the better groups in the conference. And so for you to take that confidence that you should have into these games and into the matchups with other teams is something that I think hopefully gave them a little bit of a realization and a
Right.
burst of confidence that, that's right. These guys maybe were a little bit better than we anticipated coming into it, and we were able to get them out all fall. So there's no reason we can't get a lot of these other teams out as well. And we've seen some big improvements over the last couple of weeks on the mound as well. So does it surprise me? No, because I knew we had talented guys, and they have really bought in to the daily work on the position player side. So it absolutely doesn't surprise me. But if you'd asked me a couple months ago, my answer might have been a little bit different.
Yeah, yeah, always an evolving dynamic over the course of a season, and you see the results that belief offensively can give the guys. They go down 2 runs to a ranked FGCU team the other week, and no problem, come right back and get the win. Because they know they've had much bigger comebacks with the
Mm-hmm.
bats this year, so that's fun to see see it manifest itself. You talked before in terms of offensive philosophy, right? How the first thing you evaluate is the swing, making sure the tools are there to implement then the approach that you want. Last year, Adrian Figueroa, 260 guy, which is just fine. Yeah, I mean, he had a little better numbers average wise for his freshman year, but now he's right back to that, hitting over 300. Mike Rosario, he's a 310 guy right now. He's gone from a fill-in role last year, hitting 220, to a 333 guy for part of this season. So what has that work with a couple of these players up and down the roster been like? What do you remember that evaluation process, things you needed to work on? Those are just 2 guys I mentioned, but was there adjustments in swing that you implemented, or anything that comes to
Mm-hmm.
mind? As I know you talked about, hey, we got to work on the swing, make sure our fundamentals are there, so hey, we can hit it opposite way if that's what's offered to us, and then approach. What have some of those conversations been like with your players, who have a number of them have taken nice jumps this year?
Right. I think one of the things that hopefully myself and especially our staff do a really good job of, and especially on the position player side, that's Coach Geralman and Coach Cartaya, who work with our hitters very regularly. I think one of our strengths as a group is being able to coach each hitter individually. We don't cookie cutter anybody. We don't have this swing that everybody has to have across the board, where your stance is exactly the same, your load is exactly the same, your swing path is
Right.
exactly the same, and your approach is going to be the exact same approach as the guy sitting next to you. I think one of our strengths as a group is finding the individual strengths of each of these players and making sure that we coach to those strengths. We identify any areas specifically that they may need to get better at. We identify that, we coach to it, but we take their strengths and we make sure that everybody is going to be coached to their own individual strengths and also coached to their own individual weaknesses. So,
Yeah.
if you're talking about, if you were to look at, Figgy and Rosario, two of our best hitters lineup this year, they had very different coaching. They were coached very, very differently throughout their swing. I think Mikey's was a little bit more of a physical swing adjustment. His we got a little bit, we got better playing with this swing. He was a little bit out in front and downhill with his bat swing. The point of contact was a little bit out in front. It was leading to a lot of good results in batting practice, and in training. But in the game, we were having, he was having a hard time adjusting to pitches away or breaking balls, and we got him stacked up into the backside a little bit more. We cleaned up his bat path on the way to the ball, so he's got more room for error, in the hitting zone. And so and you've seen that, you've seen
All right.
he's hitting home runs, to the opposite field right now. He's hitting home runs to the pull side. He's keeping balls fair down the pull side line, and with that, it leads to less chase because your point of contact is deeper in the zone. And that's something I'm really proud of Mikey of right now, is the fact that, he was striking out, he was having success, but he was also striking out a lot early in the first month of the season.
Yeah.
He has continued his offensive success, but really cut down on his strikeout numbers as well, throughout the back half here. So really proud of him. And then, Figgy's someone who had, he had some more stance adjustments, where he was launching his swing from, where his hands were, where his bat path was. That was a little bit more of a loading situation, where his hands were starting, where they were loading to. and then where his body weight was moving to in his swing. He had a tendency, to shift his weight, shift his hips a little bit too early, leaving his bat path behind his body in some of those situations. So getting him in a little bit more of a cleaned up, starting position for him was important. And also, Figgy is such a great kid, and he's so coachable that he takes coaching from anyone that is trying to help him. And at times that can be a great thing because he's a great kid and he's very coachable. But at times, too many cooks in the kitchen can lead to lack of your own self identity.
Yeah.
And Figgy's 6'5", he's 220 pounds, he's a left-handed hitter, he's a first baseman, and everyone has told Figgy his whole life he needs to hit the ball out of the ballpark. And I think there will be a day when he begins to drive the ball more, but that's not who he is right now. And so I think for him, getting back to really who he is as a hitter and getting back to more line drives, getting back to using the whole field, and really just making sure that he's the best version of himself that he could be, and not necessarily trying to be someone that people think he should be or who he thinks he should be. It's just being the best version
Right.
of himself. And, so really when you look at a lot of these hitters, man, I could probably go, one by one up and down the lineup on every
Yeah.
single one of them. Sanchez is another one. He was, Sanchez, Alec is, he was a 275 hitter with 10 last year. I think he's got 9 right now. So he's already tapping on 10 home runs again. He's hitting 350. So he's taking huge jumps as well. And we've had other guys up and down the lineup doing a great job as well. One of the things I think the position player group has seen right now is the benefits that a successful and complete lineup can have 1 through 9. So hitting is contagious. There's no doubt about it. And mentally it's contagious because, there's positive energy, there's great vibes, you're cheering on your teammates, they're having success, you're having success. But there's
Yeah.
also logistical reasons, why other guys hitting well will lead to you having more success. So for starters, when you have more runners on base, the pitcher's out of the stretch. That's a disadvantage to the pitcher. He's having to control the running game. He's having to worry about his times to the plate. He doesn't want to bounce a breaking ball because we could get a free base on it. Defenders are out of position. They're in double play depth. The first baseman's holding a runner on. We may bunt, so maybe the third baseman is shifted into a compromised position. So it's almost a situation where success can breed success on the offensive side of things because when you start to have a few guys that have success, then it just creates a snowball effect for the rest of the guys in the lineup.
Right.
And even more so, you're having guys that can protect you. If Sanchez got 2 or 3 hitters right behind them in the lineup that are all hitting 300 as well, they can't pitch around him. They can't pitch him as tough. And same thing for Michael, in the leadoff spot,
Yeah.
and Dante in the 2 hole. There's, when you go through a lineup and there's not a lot of holes in it, and the hitters, continue to come after you guy after guy, you're going to get pitched a little bit differently than if you have some holes because pitchers feel like they have to attack. There's nobody to pitch around. You've got protection behind you. And so, I think there's a lot of reasons why hitting is contagious. And one is the momentum and the positive energy of it. But then there's also, so like I said, some logistical things that lead to more success too. And I think our guys are understanding the importance of that.
Well, it's fascinating to really delve into it, especially you talk about swing adjustment wise or approach wise, because muscle memory from youth baseball up through high school and their approach is a part of it, right? But also if you're trying to make it to play as a professional, I feel like adjustments to your swing and approach is something you can expect to have to do all throughout your career, tinkering, whether it's approach or a little change in the swing. So it's
No
great
question.
to experience that right now. And then also I know for you, it's a delicate balance, right? Too of not trying to do too much, but also making those changes that you see necessary, whether it's approach or you talked specifically with Rosario.
Yeah, no question. And those guys have done a great job buying it. Those guys
Yeah.
have really been open to coaching and, kind of like you said, we want to, especially early in the fall in year 1, we want to really dive into some of these conversations with our players so that we can also understand their swing, what their thought process is. But the end goal is not for us to be their best hitting coach. The end goal is for them to be their best hitting coach,
Yeah.
so that they can understand, what they need to work on. Because, I can see a swing, I can talk about it, we can work on different drills, but I'll never feel what you're feeling. When you take a good swing, I'll never feel what you were feeling throughout that swing. I'll never be able to think about what you were actually thinking about, that led you to that process of a good swing. And so, over time, the big picture goal is so that obviously we're there as resources, but to give them
Yeah.
lots of information to them to help understand how they need to go about their work in the same way too. And that's why a lot of times when we're working with hitters, we'll have some overviews of things that we're working on today, some big picture coaching points, but very frequently someone will take a good swing and we'll just stop and ask, what'd you feel there? What were you trying to do there? What was
Right.
the thought process behind it? And sometimes it may not even be something that I'm a huge fan of, but if it led to them, if whatever the thought was led to them,
Yeah.
taking the swing that they just took, who am I to say that that wasn't the right way to think, or that wasn't the right way to approach it? So,
Yeah.
asking questions on good and bad reps, so they start to become their own best hitting coach as well, is something that I think as we continue to work through it is something that's important to those to us and to the guys.
Yeah. Ultimately empowering them as they continue their journey here and hopefully to the next step of baseball or wherever it may be. Coach, I know despite the good things, the numbers tied to this season that we talked about earlier, you certainly still have a standard that you want to get to. In addition to coaching, when you were at VCU, you were also the recruiting coordinator for a team that had 42 wins last year, nearly made it to that super regional, regular season titles in 19 and 20 and 21. You found a way to bring great talent to Richmond and continue to build VCU's brand. As the landscape has shifted, recruiting has shifted through the years, especially the last couple. How do you evaluate now as a head coach how you want to build your roster? The mix of the portal, underclassmen, JUCO transfers, and how is your pitch similar or different now to how you went about it when you were in Virginia?
Yeah, it's a great question, and recruiting, in today's world is a balancing act, in every way,
Right.
shape, and form. Because if you're looking at, right now, I mean, over the weekend, I'm on the phone with, s- I'm getting calls from sophomores in high school. I'm getting calls from juniors in high school. We're working on getting our committed seniors into school, and I continuing to identify anybody else that we need to be recruiting in that class. We're in conversations with junior college players. We're in conversations with transfer portal players.
Right.
And so, when you start to break it down, I mean, that's legitimately 5 different classes
Yeah.
of young men that you're recruiting all at the same time, ranging from 15 years old to 22 years old. And so, the recruiting world right now is one that you do have to, really understand how to navigate and work through. And before I even really talk about our philosophy, I've got to talk about our assistant coaches, because they do a great job. Coach DeRolliman, is a fantastic baseball guy. He is our recruiting coordinator. He's one of the best evaluators that I've ever been around. He was a pro scout in South Florida for the New York Yankees for a couple years before we brought him here over to FIU. And so,
Yeah.
for him, he's a fantastic evaluator. He has great connections, especially in the state of Florida and South Florida. And Coach Thompson is a guy on the pitching side who's got great relationships throughout the East Coast as well. He's a Pennsylvania native. He's worked in New Jersey, so he's got a good feel for the pulse of recruiting, into the Northeast, and does a great job helping recruit a lot of our pitchers and position guys as well. So, and Coach Cartaya is a young guy that's very hungry to get after it, and he's somewhat limited in his role with recruiting in terms of the rules right now, which will actually be
Sure.
changing.
Yeah.
Going into
Thankfully.
the summertime, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he's a hungry young coach who's keeping a pulse on recruiting and continuing to learn there. So our staff does a great job. But I kind of joke that as a head coach now, I'm too young to be in the office, as the CEO. I still love to be in the trenches recruiting. I love to watch games. I love to be on the phone with players and families, and I'd like to think that I'm still very actively involved in the recruiting. And for us, it will be a mix. To answer your question, it's certainly a mix. It is high school players, it is junior college players, it is transfer portal players. It's a mix, especially in the first year or two, to make sure that we have the
Yeah.
ability to be very, very competitive, early on in our time here at FIU, and making sure that if we need to sign a few older players or a few more veteran players, that maybe we would in the future, to make sure that in our first couple of years we're very competitive in quite frankly one of the best baseball conferences in the country. Conference USA is very competitive, and so for us, we need to make sure we're bringing in enough mature and physical players that can compete in this conference right away. While also making sure that we're building for the future. And our vision for FIU, the culture and the heart and soul of our team will always be built with high school players from South Florida,
Yeah.
hands down. That will be the heart and soul of our team for as long as I'm fortunate enough to be here at FIU. Is local kids to South Florida, from the high school ranks that you've known since they were 15 or 16 years old. You've known their family. You've coached them since they stepped on freshman as a campus, and you get to see a path and a journey from them as a 16-year-old, to graduation, to a freshman that has a lot to learn, to a junior or senior that has really matured and figured out the game and even life a little bit, and seeing them through to graduation. And so that will be the heart and soul of the program for sure. But that's not to say we can't attract nationwide recruits. We've got a couple kids coming in the 23 class from the Northeast. We've got good Pennsylvania connections. We've got Northeast connections, Jersey, New York, and even a few Canadian connections as well. So we do feel
Yeah.
like FIU has the brand and the ability to attract high school players, yes, from South Florida, but not only that, some of the best talent and throughout the East Coast and really nationwide that would want to come play here in South Florida, play for FIU. And but we're going to always balance that with transfers as well.
Right.
When you look at the roster this year, you're talking about people like Mikey Rosario and Ryan Guida and some of these guys that are everyday players for us that are going to be all conference players. They're transfers. They're older veteran guys that have bought into exactly what we're trying to get out of the season and what we want the program to be. And they're having a lot of great success too. So there are certainly pieces that you can add, in addition to a lot of the great high school players that we're going to get. There's junior college players, and transfer portal pieces will always be a part of our program as well. So it's really, it's navigating through all of it. It's navigating through all of it, and that's it's a fun part of the job.
The South Florida high school recruits know, but whenever you're pursuing a transfer that may be from the Northeast, it always helps to bring them down in November and December, and
No
80 degrees and palm trees is the setting. That's a
no
quick
question.
pitch,
No
quick
question.
pitch right there.
I was talking with somebody, one of our guys on our team who has a friend. I think maybe he played high school with them or travel ball with them. We're starting to recruit his friend a little bit, and I said, "Hey, ask him if he likes palm trees." So, figure, why don't you
For the
see who he's
beach,
getting?
yeah.
Yeah, see who he's getting recruited by, and ask him if he likes palm trees. And so no, there's no doubt, and we did that. We've actually done that. We had some transfer arms coming in that we brought in on official visits in November, and one of them's from Iowa, and one of them's from New York, and some of these areas, and yeah, you bring them down in November and December, and it's 75 to 80 degrees. And our team's on the field and music's playing. It's
Yeah.
it's an attractive sell to the right kid at the right time, no
Yeah.
question.
No doubt about that. Rich, you played under Gary Gilmore at Coastal Carolina, who of course guided them to a national championship in 2016. He said when you were on the team that had the statistical national championship in 2010 for the most wins, and then they got the ring that goes with that in 2016. You were with Sean Stifler recently at VCU, of course, now the head man for Notre Dame. So. And then, of course, you have obviously the relationships from your previous time in South Florida with Three and Gino DeMare. So, and even now, we'll see Joe Girardi at games quite often. Dante, of course, starting in the infield. So I mentioned all these head coaches to say, what sort of thoughts or guidance did maybe you get from these guys or other head coaches that you've admired and respected as you took this role? Did any coaching colleague provide some sort of meaningful insight to you that you try to keep in mind as you continue your first year in your head coaching journey?
Yeah, I feel like I'm one of the luckiest coaches in the country to be able to work with the people that I've worked with and play for the people I've played for. And I think the longer I coach, the more I come to understand and value the importance of relationships and loyalty. And it was important to me when I was a high school kid getting recruited to have great relationships with my coaches.
Yeah.
And in the recruiting process, I still remember, phone calls from Gilly and Kevin Schnall and Drew Thomas and these guys that were, the coaches at Coastal that I played for. That meant something to me, and it's something I've always carried with me as a coach, that in the recruiting process, the relationships you can have with players can be a difference maker. They can make your family feel comfortable about where you're going and where you're going to be spending your time. And, truthfully, and we talk about the development of 18 to 22 years old, you're going from a boy to a man.
Yeah.
And being around, really, really good people that want the best for you is something that's very, very important. So, um, I've got, I still talk with Gilly and Coach Nall, today, we still stay in conversation regularly. I'm still, now I don't cheer for him, 4 times a year. I don't cheer for him, but, I've got great relationships with Gino and JD and the guys at Miami. They're very, very respected people. I learned a lot in my experience there. From the program and from the area and a lot about the baseball in South Florida. And going to Tom Reginos, at Winthrop, who gave me my first opportunity to be a full-time, Division I coach. Lots of learning opportunities there, and worked with the guy, at Winthrop that ended up being, best man in my wedding, guy by the name of Clint Chrysler. And so, moving on into VCU where, I've had great relationships with Stiff and Mike McCray, who was the pitching coach there for a long time, who's the head coach at William & Mary now. And, Seth Volz, who's the pitching coach, with Stiff as well at Notre Dame. And, really just fortunate to have these relationships. And the longer I do it, the more I understand, how important these things are. You lean on these guys. I mean, I talk to at least somebody I mentioned in that list. I talk to them once a week.
Yeah.
And they're not only, past coworkers, but they were mentors, they're friends. I have great relationships with them. We talk about baseball. We talk about our teams. How do you do this? How do I do that? And we talk about families, and we talk about things that range from all over. So, like I said, I've got very, very impactful relationships with these guys that I'm so fortunate to be able to call them friends and mentors. And I think that's a part of developing, throughout your professional career, is working with different people and having different thoughts and ideas and discussing them, seeing what works well someplace and seeing what may not work well somewhere else. I think, yeah, as a coach, you always just try and along your path, you try and find things that you would do one day if you were a head coach. And maybe a couple things along the way that maybe I wouldn't do it that way. If I ever become a head coach. And I think you just keep this internal list of things, that you learn along the way. And, I've certainly been fortunate to be around a lot of people that I've wanted to do things, much more, I like them, so very fortunate for a lot of these people.
When did you know coaching was going to be the thing for you? I was talking with Coach Mack last podcast, and for him, it wasn't straight into coaching after he finished football at Georgia Tech. There was a brief stint working as a logistics manager in Micros Systems, which is tech that just got acquired by Oracle now. Just a random stop in between. For you, did you already have that thought of coaching when you were in Danville, Kentucky, or Conway, or when did you know that this was going to be what you were doing?
Yeah, I can't say that I did. I think probably towards the last year or two of my playing career, I started to realize that, how much I enjoyed the sport, not just playing it, but just how much I enjoyed the sport itself. And how much the sport can really teach you about life and how it can help you grow up and mature and fight through adversity, learn how to overcome it, enjoy brotherhood, learn leadership skills. And so, I can't say that it was a lifelong dream of mine, but I think towards the last year or two of my playing days at Coastal, I started to, maybe in the back of my head, keep it as a backup plan. And I think most of us, as we're playing, we have dreams of playing professionally. And so, I don't think we get too far down the road of the, what if this doesn't work out scenario. I think you become pretty singularly focused, on making your dreams come true. And for me, it was something that I had thought about. And really, I wasn't. I was not unlike a lot of 22-year-olds that just graduated. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. My whole life, my identity had been, Rich Witten, the baseball player that had been, my entire life, everything about it. I was playing pro ball in the summer after I graduated. I made a phone call to Kevin Schnall, who was my coach at Coastal, who had just gotten a new job at UCF. And I was essentially calling him to congratulate him, tell him I was happy. And, And in that same conversation of congratulating him, he mentioned to me that they could potentially have a director of operations opening there. And he thought that I would be someone who could be good for that role if I was interested in it. And then there comes the decision, right? Do you want to
There you
continue to
go.
play and hang on to the dream, or do you want to start your professional career in that regards? And so certainly, slept on it for a day or two, and realized that coaching was something that I wanted to dive into, and really had just great learning opportunities, especially early on in my career, because as a player, there's just so much that you don't see.
Yeah.
You see your coaches at practice, you see them at the games, and there's just so much behind the scenes that goes into it. And really, for me, early on in my career, learning a lot about that behind the scenes work, and how not just a baseball team operates, but how a program runs. And I think that was the biggest thing for me early on in my career. And I think quickly I never thought about doing anything else. I love the game. I love the brotherhood. I love being around coaches and players. I don't feel, I'm sure I look like I have, but I don't feel like I've ever aged a day past 23, because every single year, we have a new group of 18 and 22-year-olds. And so, I still enjoy, being around that energy that they bring to the park every single day. I think it gives me energy. I think I feed off their energy, and then hopefully, it gets returned that they feed off my energy as well. And so, coaching is, it's my hobby. I don't play a lot of golf. I don't do a lot of fishing. I don't take many guide trips. It's, when you coach and you're really committed to it, it's pretty much every hobby, that would take up your free time. It's taking up those hobbies that you would have. And so for me, but I'm happy. I love that it's my hobby. I love that it's my job. And really, it's all about baseball and coaching, being around these guys, and then and now in every other free minute, it's about spending time with my family and my wife and our new 6-month-old, and doing my best to keep that balanced as well. So it's been a fun journey, one that I didn't necessarily see coming when I was maybe 18.
Yeah.
But it's been very, very fun, and I couldn't see it happening any other way.
Yeah. When you have a new little one at home, and you also love being active in recruiting, as you just said, not just, being the CEO, but, those are two things in itself that will leave little time for golf, as, as you
No question.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Which, and I was going to ask about golf in a little bit. I still am, but now I've got an idea. He may not be the biggest golfer. Okay. And then
Yeah, that's
until
okay. I still swing it a little bit. I can still swing it.
okay.
I've still got,
Yeah.
I can still
As
swing it a
long as
little
you
bit.
can,
But
get you got the top golf swing. That's respectable. That's all that really matters.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I would thrive, to be honest with you. Yeah, I thrive in the driving range. I can hit some good
There you
looking
go.
shots.
Yeah.
But now to go out and play 18 and try and incorporate the short game and putting and
You can't, but you
some
can't
dog.
triple bogey on the driving range. You can't triple bogey on
No,
the
no, no,
driving
no,
range.
no. You just hit
It's
another one.
always a
Yeah,
good
you
day.
shank. Yeah.
There you go. You get it. It's always a good day on the driving range. Coach, last summer you talked with Hunter Pence a little bit on the Perfect Game podcast about your background, minoring in psychology, and the important. I think of my psychology class. I think it was like 8 p.m. It was like the latest class you could take, 8 to 9:30 p.m. We had to end our cross country practices like early so that we could bus back and bring freshman AJ to class. My team was never happy with me on that. But you minored in psychology. You were talking with him about, the importance and the theme of baseball of handling failure, of dealing with failure, ways in which you can respond to that better. And a lot of that going back to preparation and confidence that you've been able to build beforehand. You had a pretty dang good college career. Led the Big South in RBIs your senior year. But do you recall a point in your collegiate career where there was a real defining moment, a real defining point where failure was involved, and you were able to move forward from that in a meaningful way? Like, I still remember the day before ACCs getting told you're not traveling to ACCs. I didn't make the roster for it. I remember that failure. I don't think in
Right.
the short term I handled it really well. I was making vague Facebook posts about my frustration. People text me, "Is everything okay? Like, something seems really wrong." Like, I didn't make ACC. I didn't really handle it well, but I think long term it was a real defining moment. And the next year I was there, and I was proud of the long term. But that's what comes to mind for me, for you. I think all of us have it at some point in our collegiate careers, no matter how successful it is. What comes to mind from your time at Coastal Was a tough point, and how do you feel that you handled that moving forward, and does it still kind of bring some life principles to you when you reflect on that?
It was certainly when I became injured my freshman year. I battled through a couple different arm injuries. So I showed up on campus as a two-way player. And actually, my true freshman season, I was in the starting lineup on opening day. And then on Sunday, I was actually the starting pitcher. So, as the starter, on the mound. But,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that was, it was certainly fun and very, very memorable. But by the end of that season, unfortunately, I started to have some arm injuries, and after my freshman season, I had a labrum surgery on my right shoulder. Rehab that that was certainly one of the hardest moments of my life. Is like I had mentioned earlier, your whole identity up until that point in your life is pretty much as a baseball player.
Yeah.
That's the only
Yeah.
thing you've ever thought about. It's the only thing you've ever wanted to do. And that is really the first time in my life I couldn't play baseball. I couldn't really be a part of anything. I couldn't do what I wanted to do, and I felt internally lost a little bit, and wasn't quite sure how to handle almost anything when I didn't have baseball to fall back on, when I didn't have that routine. I couldn't um, go be on the field on a regular basis. And so, being injured and having a 12-month rehab, ahead of me to even have a chance to get back on the mound was certainly, mentally very, very tough, and some of those moments. And then actually I'll really bum you out because 13 months after that, I actually was pretty close to being back on the mound and actually had a tore my UCL
Mm.
about 13 months after that, and then required a Tommy John surgery in order to continue pitching. And at that point, I had a real decision to make. It's do we go for another 12 months here to rehab this injury as well and try and get back on the mound, or do we do rehab the best we can and just become a little bit more of a position player full time? And the past year of rehabbing, not playing, not competing, not really feeling as part of the team as much as I would have liked to have been. I didn't feel like I could do that again. And so for me, once I just made that decision to commit to being a position player, get my arm as healthy as I possibly could, I really never tried to look back. I think I do have a very, futuristic mindset of trying to learn from the past, but not necessarily dwell or think about the past.
Right.
It's just trying to make sure that we can make the best decisions in the moment that we can possibly make, be committed to them, and move forward with them. And so those are moments that in my playing career I'll never forget. Because it felt like there had been a part of me that had been lost and went missing for a period of time, and really getting back to having success as a position player, getting repetitions. And I think even as I came back that year, we had a very talented team, and really didn't get some opportunities until late in the season. When I actually was fortunate to have a lot of success, was named to I believe it was the all tournament team in the Big South that year. Had a couple big games in that. We played in the regional, had a couple big games in that. Was on the all regional team as well. And that was after playing, very sparingly, in the first half of the season. And so, but you just have to think about the work that you have to do that day. That's the only thing that you can control every single day when you show up is putting in the best possible work that you can put in that day. And then you show up the next day and you do the exact same thing again. And you show up the next day and do the exact same thing again. So you don't, when you think about long-term success, you don't have to think about all the things you have to do over the next 365 days. You just think about what you have to do that day and how can I do it the best I possibly can on this day. And then you separate every day individually. And so it's not having to worry about doing 365 days worth of stuff. It's doing one day's worth of stuff 365 times and having the mental toughness to repeat that day, to show up the next day, to show up the next day with the same tenacity, the same energy, the same
Right.
life, the same work ethic every single day. I think that's where mental toughness comes into. Is having the ability to show up every single day and put great work in and not take any days off and not have any days where you find yourself going through the motion or mentally not engaged. And so,
Right.
I really learned, I think, as my career went on, I really learned the importance of that. And especially as a coach, I hope that one of the things that we do here is not ride a roller coaster of emotions up and down and bring a very consistent mindset every single day where we never get too high, we never get too low. We just put in really, really quality work every single day, and we separate each day, with putting in the best work we can possibly put in that day, and that's the only thing we can control. And then when we show up as a group the very next day, that's the next task at hand, and that's the best work that we're trying to put in for that day. And so I think when you have the ability to stack those types of days together, you do find abilities to overcome adversity, to overcome failure when the only thing that you can control is your work on that day. It can make a big picture situation look a little bit more manageable and a little bit easier to handle when all you have to worry about are the 4 or 5 things you have to do on that single day, and then you take every day as a new one and bring the same mindset and attitude. And so I think for me, that's how I was able to overcome the adversity and moments of failure, and something that I try and instill in our team as well is that every day is a new day. And you show up with a very, very consistent mindset each day to work. And we have consistent personalities as a staff. Every single day I'm energized by our staff. We have not only great coaches, but we have great guys. I love spending time around them. Not just as baseball coaches, but as people, and then so I'm very fortunate for that as well. So
I hear you on the injury, man. It's you go from that being your outlet, the sport being the outlet your whole life, and you have a tough day in the classroom, you have a tough day, I don't know, socially, you just go to the field and have a good sweat, for 2 hours,
yeah.
or you have your game day and you forget about that, and all of a sudden that's taken away. And if you could find a way for the ensuing year to get after it and focus in the athletic training room, I'm sure once you were able to to get on the field again, you really didn't take that for granted. And it was maybe even easier to go all in physically and mentally to that. No, well said. All right. Just a couple of quick hitters to finish things off here. All right.
All right.
Got a quick ones for you. First off, best baseball movie in your opinion, number one.
Oh, this is such an impossible question. I
Very,
love Bull
very
Durham.
broad.
I love Bull
Okay.
Durham. Yeah,
Okay.
I love Bull Durham. Kevin Costner's got a couple really good baseball movies
Yeah,
out
I'm gonna
there.
hit you with his other with
Uh,
Field of Dreams. I'm gonna go
okay,
with
yeah,
that
yeah,
one.
yeah. That's a good one. You
Determined
can't
to
argue with it.
make
Yeah.
a pilgrimage up there for one of the Field of Dreams games now. Just gotta save up to buy a ticket for that one, which I
Yeah.
think it might it's a little pricey to get into that one.
Yeah.
We talked about this in your intro day interview. We are men of Monty's, but do you have another favorite Miami restaurant at this juncture?
You're gonna make me think about that. I think Monty still holds up.
Okay.
I could
Nothing
list
wrong
three
with
or four
that.
other places. It still holds up because it's got whatever you're in the mood for. It's got that vibe to it. If you
Yep.
want a little bit of a nicer place, you can go for a nice dinner. If you want a lunch, a casual lunch by the water, it's got that vibe as well. It's never too crowded, but there's always people there. And and so I think that's still a go-to for us. But really, my wife and I probably need to explore a little bit more of the food and drink scene, locally, to be honest with you, because, like I said, my hobbies are limited right now. So we're not,
Sure.
in
Yeah.
season, and, with the 6-month-old right now, we're not doing a lot of dinners out on the town.
No worries. Maybe this summer here the time will find itself. There's a nice cousin to Monty's in Bayshore Club that just opened up right next to it. That's a rec I'll give you if you're ever at that area. That can change it up a little bit. Are we a
Yeah, yeah.
fan? Are we a fan of the pitch clock? Are we a fan of the pitch clock? This is obligatory. We don't have to delve into this one like every single podcast out there, but I figured I'd bring it up.
I'm a fan of it. Yeah, I'm a fan of it. I didn't see it being a huge issue in the college game, to be honest with you. I think
Right.
most pitching coaches and staffs in the college side of things prefer that their guys work with tempo and pitch with aggressiveness and get the ball and get the sign and are ready to go. So I didn't see it as a huge need in our game, but it's been implemented and it's been fine.
Yeah.
On the pro side, yeah, the game had really, really slowed down pitch to pitch on the pro side. And so, I'm not sure if they got it exactly right. There's moments where it seems almost a little bit too quick,
Right.
for the hitter. And there's some, I hate to see strategy involved, where there's gamesmanship within a pitch clock in baseball, because it is one of the beautiful things of our sport. To not be able to run out the clock and for there not to be a clock on the wall. for our sport. So, when you're starting to see, the pickoff moves limited and base runners starting to be able to get different jumps, and when guys get to two strikes, having to maybe call some extra timeout so they can slow their process down a little bit at the plate. So, I'm not sure it's a perfect system right now, but I do think the game needed a tempo push. They'll probably get it ironed out over the next year or two. But there was an adjustment that needed to be made, in my opinion. It may,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think there's still enough of a differential between the collegiate and pro game too. And the main fact that, and maybe it's not talked about as much, but just still being able to toss back to first as many times as you want collegiately. So, the pitch clock can be winding down, but if you're not ready, you don't like your grip, you can just toss it back over to first for a couple. I think it's, you still have that, in the back pocket. So
that's my least favorite part of the rule is limit the pickoff throws to first base. I think
because once you do it twice professionally, the advantage to the base runner is inherent.
Yeah, no question. And so that's, I don't love that part of it, but I thought that the tempo to the major league game could have been picked up a little bit from pitch to pitch, from a hitter taking a swing and, walking all the way around the dirt circle and taking 30 to 40 seconds, or a pitcher, walking to the back of the mound and taking 30 to 40 seconds. So, I felt like something probably needed to get addressed. There's probably some still small rooms for improvement, but Manfred hadn't asked for my opinion yet, so I'll keep most of it to myself until then.
If he asks you for your opinion on the man on extras to start the 10th, are we a fan of that in college, or still just keep it where we're at?
Nah, I'm a traditionalist. I want to earn it. I want the other team to earn it. Yeah. I want to earn it, and I want the other team to have to earn it as well. So I'm a traditionalist in most of those forms.
Got 3 of them from scratch last week, and it was awesome. It was great. Will I, as a cross country man, as a runner, will I find you in any local 5Ks anytime soon? Will I see you on the start line? Do you have any running background?
It took me to get done with playing until I actually started enjoying running. I certainly, as a player, when I was playing, I remember thinking to myself, these people that just go on runs for fun are insane. Who just wants to go run for 30 minutes?
There is a bit of psycho behavior involved with what we do.
I'll never go run when I get done playing. Maybe I'll lift or work out a little bit, but I'll never just go on a run. That doesn't make any sense. And ironically enough, I have come to enjoy runs from time to time. Now, I probably do it about once a week. I don't think I'm in any official 5Ks, but right now my running day is kind of on a Sunday morning. We play a little bit earlier, on Sunday. So I'll drive to campus. I'll get here early, and I'm not quite awake enough to lift and work out in the gym. So I can just kind of put some good music on, get a little caffeine in me, and take off around this beautiful campus and log a couple miles and get ready.
It's the best when you're still halfway asleep. It goes quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I enjoy it from time to time. It's good playlist going. Get a little pre-workout in your body and go zone out.
Yeah, the follow-up to this was, what about the golf course? But that's what we were referencing earlier. Maybe not as much. I told Mac it's got to be a less, like I need lessons first before the next round, because it's just throwing money away at this point.
No question. It is a very expensive and time consuming hobby. It costs you a pretty penny, and you're going to also need to commit 4 to 5 hours to it on a day. And I just don't think I could justify it right now to my wife as much as I'm gone. But she's I'm just joking. She supports everything about it, and she actually tells me, there's about one time a year where I actually do a group of friends that we go on a golf outing, and I don't play very good, but I can break 100.
That's good.
I can get in the double digits. Yeah, I can get in the double digits. I won't be better than 90. But I can at least not embarrass myself for the most part when I go play a little golf. It's it's the baseball swing, right? If you can, the hand-eye coordination.
Wait, is it though? Don't they say that it shouldn't be?
It shouldn't. No, it shouldn't be. But thankfully, I don't have to have a good baseball swing anymore. So, I can hit a couple. I can go play around the golf and hit a couple of the best shots you've ever seen, and also a couple of the worst shots you've ever seen. So,
That's
that's
a
where
good
my
round of
game is.
golf right there. Yep, that's a
Yeah.
typical round right there. Well, we're recording this on a Wednesday, so we'll both be at the Paws Up tour tonight at Beat Culture Brewing over close to Doral, right next to the airport. So certainly looking forward to that, and then a couple more by the time folks are listening to this. Still probably before the Paws Up tour in Orlando at Top Golf, and then Fort Lauderdale at Funky Buddha, and so I'd imagine. I don't know if you're going to be at the Orlando one, Rich, but probably for Fort Lauderdale. Definitely tonight at Beat Culture. So certainly looking forward to that. FIU baseball is in great shape. I'm really looking forward to see if we can make a run here towards the end of the regular season. And I'll leave you with that. What's what excites you about this stretch run right here? What'll be important the final month of regular season play as we try to fight for a conference tournament spot here.
Yeah, absolutely. To kind of talk about the Paws Up tour a little bit. I mean, what an unbelievable, series of events that
Oh,
our
it's going to be great.
administration has put on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just talk about, being on the right path in the athletic department, creating a footprint, throughout the state, all over the state in different areas, and getting our brand out there and having people in the state of Florida, in South Florida, understanding, really what is going on, obviously in the FIU athletic department. That starts with Scott Carr at the top, and I think Mike McIntyre has done one of the best jobs I've ever seen of helping lead a football team, but also be a spokesperson for the university. It's something I've been really blown away with. Watching him in a very short amount of time is how unbelievable he is at getting out in the community as well. And again, Scott leading the charge, and lots of people throughout the department creating momentum behind our athletic programs, which is just so appreciated from the coaching standpoint. I know our fans will appreciate it as well, and even our new fans that we're recruiting through a lot of these types of events. So it's hugely important for our department, and obviously as we go into each sports, it's very important for us in baseball as well. So I can't wait to be there tonight. Yeah, I'll be there. I will miss one of the future ones. We're going to be in Rice. We're traveling on the road in conference.
Yeah, for one of those.
I know the one. Yeah. So, but I'm excited for tonight. It should be a really fun event. But, I'm just one of the things that, we talk about the rest of our season, and I've told our team this over and over again, is throughout the season, like we've talked about, you face challenges, you face adversity. And one of the things I've been most thrilled about with our team is the way that they have responded to challenges. Several key moments throughout this year. I have laid out, huge challenges that directly to them. And literally on that day, almost each time they have responded in a huge way. And so now, we have a challenge ahead of us. And, we have 4 of the most important weekends of the entire year, with a couple of these weekend matchups being direct competitors for teams that will be into the conference tournament. And so, this is in our control. We don't have to rely on other people, to do this or do that. We have the ability with who we have left on the schedule that if we win and we do what we're supposed to do as a group, that we're going to make a really nice run into the late part of the year. So the way our team responds to challenges, I'm really excited to see them doing that over the next month. And really when it comes to making that push into the postseason, it's within our control. We don't need help from anybody. We can go out and we can win games against the teams that we need to, win these games against. And they won't be easy. We're playing very competitive teams, but the teams that we will be competing with, into the postseason are the teams on our schedule to play. And so from a coach, you couldn't ask for any other opportunities than for the, than for the season to be within your control as you move forward into the back end of it.
Yeah, it's still so close together. You have one good weekend, another team has a tough one, and you're right where you need to be in terms of having a place in that tournament. It's still very tight and a lot of important games to play. So very much within our control, our purview, and that's all you can ask for as a coach and team moving forward. This was great, Rich. I appreciate it. A lot of fun. Thanks for hopping on the pod. We'll see you first at the brewery in a couple hours. Always looking forward to that. And let's have a good stretch run here. But thanks again for joining us, Rich.
Absolutely, AJ. I really enjoyed it, man. Thanks for having me on.